Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the NFL Universe. I'm joined with Max this week,
What's up, guys? I'm back.
and pretty much not much news has really went on during the week other than I'll talk about it. I don't think Max has much to say. I mean, Max gave maybe his input. So Odell was released officially by the Browns, and I covered a little bit on it on our Instagram at the NFL Universe.tsu. I made about a minute video there. Was officially released, and now he's looking for a team. That's 4 o'clock, so he cleared waivers. So whatever team signs him is going to sign him at this point. I apparently he's showed interest in the Packers. I don't know really he's going to fall. I said I like the spot for him would be the Raiders. That's the spot I like for him. But what do you have to say, Max? Any destinations for OBJ?
I mean, all I'm really going to say is I'm not surprised he cleared waivers because with that contract, and he's going to be signing for cheap, obviously, because now he has the baggage against him, and I don't want to say shocking because we've known about Odell's antics for a while, but I really thought that the Browns' problems had to do with them being cohesive, not being cohesive as a team in the past, and maybe that's still part of it. But if you're going to release a guy like that who's got all the talent in the world but just can't keep his head straight, now even his dad's getting involved, it's just too much of a headache. And is he going to really? I don't want to say that he's not going to put a team over the top because he has all the talent, but is that really you really want to take that risk, even signing him for cheap?
And I saw another.
I would obviously, but it's just questions because he wasn't effective with the Browns, obviously.
100%. And question: where is he going to be effective next? And because it really hasn't been overly effective since he was in the Giants. And that being said, if him going to the Packers, I saw this little tidbit on ESPN with Emmanuel Ocho, I think you pronounce his name. It was saying, if he goes to the Packers, you have another year of Aaron Rodgers, and then you have Jordan Love. What's that team going to look like post Aaron Rodgers? You don't know. Where he brought up a good point. If he goes to somebody like the Patriots, they're going to have Mac Jones. He's developing, and that defense is always going to be good because you have Bill Belichick. And I thought that was a really good take. So, Odell really has to sit down and think what's going to be the best for his future, his career, because Packers are winning now 100% over the Patriots, but longevity wise, you're 28. You still got a good 5 years in you before you're not really a viable, number one receiver anymore. So you might I think you should go to a team that's going to give you 5 years worth of your value.
It's also worth noting that now that Odell's not going to be making as much money anymore, he's not going to have the effect that he had on previous teams where he was one of the guys that had to be treated well or whatever it was to keep his ego in check. What you guys know what I mean? I don't really know the wording here, but the point is he's going to have to go to a team where there's already established leaders there, so that way he doesn't get the spotlight. Because once you put him in the spotlight, it all goes to hell, as we've seen with the Giants and Browns now.
100%. So moving into our Week 9 games, going into them. First game we have is the Colts and the Jets, and so the Colts won this one 45-30. Had a brain fart there, I don't know why. Colts take this one 45-30. Colts moved to 4-5. Jets moved to 2-6. Two storylines that I take from this game, maybe three. Mike White, I guess his name is, they was really overhyped by the Jets during the week, goes down with, I believe, a forearm wrist injury, doesn't return to the game. And you have Josh Johnson, who is a 4-string quarterback at this point because you have Joe Flacco, I was talking to my boy. Joe Flacco is supposed to be the third stringer, so you're at your 4-string quarterback. And he had a pretty solid game, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 reception, nothing crazy. But I thought it was a really cool story with this game. Obviously, Carson Wentz did good. The Jets, their team is not good by any means. Jonathan Taylor almost went really insane in this game. I mean, if he didn't have that knee injury that took him out for a quarter, who knows what he would have finished with. 19 carries, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's rushing. And then receiving wise, Jonathan Taylor also had 28 yards. So fantastic game out of him. Michael Pittman Jr. also had 64 yards and a touchdown on 5 receptions. Michael Pittman Jr. continues to be the number 1 receiver for the Colts. Colts don't have much of a shot to make the playoffs. I still think Titans are, and we'll get to that. Titans, I think, have gone beyond Derrick Henry, so it really doesn't really affect the win here. And the Jets are still bad. It doesn't really change anything. But Jets are on the 4-string quarterback. I do believe that Mike White's going to return this week. So they'll probably go back to him. But other than that, not much about this game, Max.
2 things I want to touch on. Number 1, Jonathan Taylor. He kind of started the year off slow, but Jonathan Taylor is proving why he's as great of a running back as he is. Right now, I'd say he's in the top 5. He's going to be in that top 3 conversation soon, I believe. If he didn't get injured, it'd be Henry, probably even Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor with McCaffrey and Saquon getting injured all the time. And he's really rising to the occasion. He's showing why he's so good. And for the Jets, one thing I just want to ask is, I know it's a 6th round pick, but why would you trade an actual draft pick for Joe Flacco if you're not going to play him? Like, what sense does that make?
100%.
I mean, if Zach Wilson were still in, then fine, I understand that. But like, I would say about a 6th rounder is about what a backup caliber quarterback is.
Yeah, and you might as well pick one that has longevity over a Joe Flacco.
It's just another failure by the Jets.
100%. So moving on from there, Giants Raiders. Giants win this one 23-16. I gotta say, I think.
Thank you.
I don't know about this,
Thank you.
I feel like the Raiders and all the things off the field are catching up with them. I think it showed in this game when you lose to this abysmal Giants team. It's hard to say, but I am of the opinion of this. I think everything that's happened off the field with the Raiders is going to catch up with them, and this might be the start of it. There's no way that you lose your head coach, lose your starting wide receiver. They cut Arnett during the week, which I forgot to mention. He was flashing a weapon on an Instagram video, as well as he got into a confrontation with a woman, and there was some sort of lawsuit going on. They wound up cutting him. So the Raiders essentially traded, when it's all said and done, Khalil Mack for Josh Jacobs, which was obviously not worth it because they went ahead and cut their two first rounders from the year prior. I think it's going to eventually catch up to them. I don't think Derek Carr can carry this team all on his own. And I think it shows here. On the Giants side of things, pretty solid game out of Booker. 99 yards for him. Evan Ingram had a fantastic catch. If you guys saw it, I think it was on ESPN highlights. 38 yards and a touchdown for him. Again, not a fantastic game out of the Giants offense, but Giants defense was fantastic. Xavier McKinney, 2 interceptions, fantastic. He was really the star of this game, and I'm glad because I invested to a decent amount of Xavier McKinney autos back in the day. So I've been hoping and praying he's doing well, and this might be his breakout game, hopefully. But Giants win this one. Giants move to 3-6, and as a Giants fan, we might make the playoffs. And it's simply because of this. The NFC as a whole this season is very bad compared to the AFC.
Terrible.
I think it was like the AFC versus NFC this week. The NFC went 1-7 against the AFC, which is incredible.
I was thinking to myself of the playoff teams in the NFC, and I think, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I believe I only thought 4 or 5 teams really deserve to make the playoffs. There's going to be 2 teams in there at least that have no business being there.
And let's put it this way. Giants are 3-6. It's like, oh, they're not making the playoffs. Right now, if the season ended today, I saw a post. The Atlanta Falcons would be in the playoffs. So, which is incredible. So this season is just this is a very weird season. I feel like there's not a lot of separation between teams. There's not really that Chiefs that blows out everybody this year. There's a lot of different teams that are good. A lot of different teams that are good. A lot of different teams that are bad.
There's not a clear favorite in the AFC either. The more I think about it, there are not. Every single team I think in the NFL this year has at least one legitimate knock on them. Everyone.
So moving on from there, Saints Falcons. Falcons take this one 27-25. Falcons are 4-4. Falcons are abysmal, but the Saints are even worse. Matt Ryan, 343 yards, 2 touchdowns. Davis, Cordarrelle Patterson has been fantastic this season. It's incredible. 126 yards receiving, only 10 yards rushing. He's just been such a dual threat for that Falcons team, and it just makes absolutely no sense. On the Saints side of things, obviously, you're without Jameis Winston. They moved to Trevor Siemian. They moved back off of him for Hill. 249 yards, 2 touchdowns for Siemian, and then he had 33 yards for Hill. This Saints team has no direction right now, honestly. Lost Michael Thomas for the year. You're without a quarterback. I really don't know where they land, but obviously they're 5-3. They might make the playoffs, might not. I don't. They're not even close to Super Bowl. Don't get me wrong.
They are 5-3, aren't they? Wow.
It's just a weird season. Like the Saints aren't a good team, but they're 5-3.
It's not just that they're not good; they're inconsistent as hell. Yeah. They beat the Bucs and Brady, but even with Trevor Siemian playing, when they lose to the Falcons, they lose to the Giants early in the year. I don't get it, dude.
100%. Moving on from there, we have the Bills and the Jaguars. The Jaguars take this one 9-6. I don't even know what to say about this game. I mean, Josh Allen.
I really didn't watch the game, honestly. I honestly didn't watch many of the games.
I didn't watch this game because I didn't think I had to
study until the Titans game was on. Right. But I guess one thing I will say about the Bills, and I said it earlier in the season, is that, and again, I didn't watch this game, but it might be one of those things where the lack of a supporting cast of the Bills is catching up to them because it's Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. They don't have many receivers outside of that. Dawson Knox has been good, but they don't have much of a run game either.
And Dawson Knox has been
They're
out.
not as complete. The Bills are not as complete of a team as people are giving they're not as complete as people are giving them credit for.
I feel like they still have the number one ranked defense in the NFL, which is incredible. With that being said, Josh Allen did not look good this game. That Dawson Knox was out, but he's going to return this game, and he was a big part of their offense prior. I think rushing wise, they're not good. That's probably one of their biggest flaws. I think on offense is their running game. It's not good. I mean, Singletary's okay. Zach Moss is okay. They don't have a clear number one. And the rushing game is generally non-existent. You had leading rusher was Josh Allen, 50 yards rushing. Behind him, you had Singletary with 16. It's not the first time it's happened
that way where he's been the leading rusher.
And then you have Moss at 6 yards. I mean, looking at it statistically, that seems to be their number one issue. Because Diggs and Sanders are not horrible, but in Beasley, decent combo. But Diggs hasn't been as productive as he was in years past.
The receivers are decent. The run game is atrocious for them.
And then Trevor Lawrence goes down with an injury, comes back in this game. Just abysmal game by both teams. The Bills should not have dropped this one, honestly. But I don't have much to say about it. That the Bills just absolutely blew a game. This is. I don't want to say this is a complete downfall of them because, again, I think Josh Allen is the favorite for MVP at this point. At this point in the season, Kyler Murray is falling off a slight bit. With that being said, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe this is the Bills-Packers number one game in terms of, the first game of the season where Packers played abysmal. It's like, oh, they're a bad team. Maybe it's just a fluke game. We'll have to see, but not a good look for the Bills.
Things happen, so you never know.
Moving on from there, Browns-Bengals. Browns won 41-16. Browns 5-4, Bengals 5-4. What a division that division's turning out to be between the Ravens, the Browns, Bengals. I mean, wow. Gonna be a very tight race down the line, but Baker Mayfield, 218 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nick Chubb, fantastic game out of him. Comes back and absolutely explodes. 137 yards and 2 touchdowns on 14 carries. Donovan Peoples-Jones leading the receiving corps, 86 yards and a touchdown. Jarvis Landry, what happened to him? I mean, he's pretty much non-existent. 3 receptions for 11 yards, and obviously they didn't let Odell play. I don't know how this Browns team's going to end up.
Was it really Odell, honestly?
Yeah.
Was it? Because in 1 week, the run game came back with Nick Chubb, who, by the way, is tested positive for COVID. We could have to do with the Bengals because they kind of seem to be unraveling after that loss to the Jets.
Yeah.
But
the Bengals went from
really that much of a detriment to them.
The Bengals went from the number one team in the AFC to out of the playoff race at this point, and that's just the type of season it's been.
In 2 games too.
Joe Burrow, 2 interceptions here, 282 yards. Didn't look great. Mixon was okay with 2 touchdowns, 64 yards rushing. Higgins, 78 yards. And then you had Chase with 49 yards. I mean, pretty abysmal game out of the Bengals. They pretty much dropped this one. Browns are starting to get healthier. This could be a sign that the Browns' health getting back to normal is really going to explode because, you still got Kareem Hunt around the corner. Greedy Williams is day-to-day. They're only probably going to get better as the season progresses. So it's like, how good are they going to get? Are they going to be that team that we thought they were at the end of the season that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, this is honestly for me, this game's a perfect example. This has been one of the toughest seasons for me to figure out. Just the sheer inconsistency across the board, even in college too. Football is all over the place this year, and we really have no idea where anything's going to go. And even though I'm saying it was Odell that much of a detriment, it's just one player. At the end of the day, one player does not make or break your team. It's all this season and this game looks like it's all about momentum. And
then moving on from there, similar team, Panthers started off the year hot, have pretty much crippled up until this point. Patriots went 24-6. Patriots moved to 5-4. Panthers moved to 4-5. Patriots are looking like a playoff team, which is incredible. I wouldn't have thought it coming into the season. Mac Jones has done very well. Wasn't overly fantastic in this game, but enough to win. That defense was really good. Mac Jones, 139 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 reception. Stevenson was their leading rusher, 62 yards. And I mean, it was also their leading receiver, Stevenson. Just goes to show you that the Patriots really don't need talent. They need a viable quarterback, and they need Bill Belichick, and he'll make shit happen. He'll make stuff happen on defense. I mean, it's just incredible. And then going over to the Panthers side of things, Sam Darnold, again, another abysmal game out of him, 3 interceptions here. McCaffrey was pretty much non-existent, pretty much canceled out in this game, 52 yards rushing for him, 54 yards receiving, didn't have a touchdown. Great, still over 100 yards, don't get me wrong, but for McCaffrey, you expect a lot more out of him, at least a touchdown here or 2. With the high usage that they give him. One thing I wanted to note, Stephon Gilmore with a nice pick against Mac Jones, against his former team right there. So, that's probably one of the highlights of this game. But again, this Panthers team is pretty much unraveled since their 3-0 start, and the Panthers continue to look more and more like Patriots rather continue to look more and more like a playoff team. Max,
I guess the Panthers, the problem is a lot more identifiable with no McCaffrey. And I will say right here, a couple of weeks ago, I said something where the Panthers, a big reason why they were losing tons because they were dropping passes, and yeah, that had to do. But maybe the loss McCaffrey does, but not maybe it does have a lot more to do than I thought it did originally, because now they're scoring 6 points, 3 points, and I heard that there was an altercation on the sideline between Robbie Anderson and Sam Darnold. It's just a mess. It's amazing how that one player has really affected them.
Moving on from there, Broncos, Cowboys. Broncos win this one 30-16. However, that score is not at all accurate of representation of this game. Broncos dominated the Cowboys throughout this game. Cowboys put up 16 points in garbage time. That being said, Broncos, Javonte Williams looks fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you watched this game, Max, but Javonte Williams ran all over the Cowboys. I mean, breaking tackles. He was incredible. Melvin Gordon also had 80 yards on touchdown, but Javonte Williams 111 yards. I just see it as simple as this. Melvin Gordon is not going to be on the team if Javonte Williams continues to play like that. They're not going to pay Melvin Gordon. They're going to release him. Moving on from there, Tim Patrick had another fantastic game, 85 yards on a touchdown. Jerry Jeudy looked very good. Jerry Jeudy had 69 yards, but, I mean, the quality of play that he had in terms of the actual catches that he made were fantastic. I mean, this Broncos team looked great. Cowboys on the other side of the thing looked the opposite. They did not look like themselves, obviously. 232 yards for Dak Prescott, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception. Ezekiel Elliott was held to 51 yards rushing. Dalton Schultz was their number 1 receiver with 54 yards. Amari Cooper, 2 receptions on 37 yards. Had a couple drops this game, which is the opposite of what Amari Cooper is known to have the best hands in the NFL in terms of his ability to catch at this point. Because I think he has up until this game, I don't know the statistics now, but he had the highest catch percentage in the NFL in terms of targets to catches and minimal amount of drops. Dropped like I think two or more in this game, which is incredible. CeeDee Lamb held to 23 yards. Parsons had a fantastic game. Don't get me wrong, 2.5 sacks. I mean, I think Parsons has kind of locked themselves into Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's my pick right now. I don't think it's going to change. So they have a gem there, but big loss for the Cowboys in terms of how they looked. They're still 6-2, most likely going to win the NFC East. Don't get me wrong. Broncos with this type of game, put themselves back in playoff contention. I feel like so many teams are like 4-5, 5-4, right on that bubble. We're at such a really interesting time in the NFL right now in terms of like this, again, not a clear number 1 team. There's so many teams that are 5-4, 4-5 on that bubble that you just don't know what's going to happen week to week.
It feels like one of those games where the Cowboys kind of overlooked their opponent. And the same thing almost happened with the Patriots where they almost lost due to bad coaching. Of course, didn't watch this game, but it's one of those red flags for the Cowboys. Like, if you're going to be elite, you can't lose games like this to teams that you really should beat handily. And I'll just say, this week, in terms of football in general, this would have been a really good week for me to watch Red Zone until because the Titans were on Sunday night. But I just couldn't. But that was kind of tough for me.
So moving on from there, Vikings, Ravens. Ravens won this one 34-31 in an overtime thriller. Vikings side of things again. Vikings are inconsistent, but they still have they can still make the playoffs if they win. They win a lot of good games from here on out. They look like they've been a competitive team, but they're not winning games overall. Dalvin Cook 110 yards, pretty much the highlight there. Justin Jefferson 69 yards and a touchdown. Ravens side of things, Lamar Jackson, fantastic. 266 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions not great. Had 120 yards on the ground. He has now surpassed, I think, Michael Vick as for 100 plus rushing yards by quarterback. He now has the most of it in a very young career. Michael Vick, given had the dogfighting issues where he was out for a couple of years, but again, he already passed Michael Vick, who's known as the best rushing quarterback in NFL history, not even close. Lamar Jackson passes. Lamar Jackson's a special talent. We knew that. Puts the team on his back here, and they go on and win this game. Going over to rushing as well, Devonta Freeman looked very good, as well as Le'Veon Bell looked very good. It seems like that duo is working for them in the backfield. And, that's promising considering the losses that they've had on in terms of the running back position, starting with J.K. Dobbins and going down the line. It's good to see that they have a mix of running backs that can actually produce. Marquise Brown, 116 yards on 9 receptions. Again, pretty good game out of him. Really close game here. Again, Ravens are really inconsistent, but they win here. They win this one, 6-2. Vikings 3-5. Ravens most likely going to win. If I had to pick a team right now, it's between the Ravens and the Browns to win the division. It's going to be close. that division is going to be fantastic. I'll say it again, but Vikings fall to 3-5. They may make the playoffs, but they got to start winning games like this. It's going to be big for them. Max?
I mean, and also the shows the inconsistency of the Ravens because we know the Vikings aren't that good yet. The Ravens yet another game where they're closer than they really should be. So yeah, it just this year is just so inconsistent all over the place, and it really does feel a common theme that good teams are really playing down to bad competition all over the board.
Mm-hmm. So moving on from there, Dolphins, Texans. Not much to say about this game. 17-9. Dolphins winning. Worst two teams in the NFL. One thing I'll say, Gesicki is a pretty much. I think he's an elite tight end at this point. He's very good.
One-handed catch.
I think he had like two of them. Very good. Wow. Jalen Waddle, 83 yards. One thing I got to say about the Dolphins, Wilson, you need to cut him. He's the worst receiver I've ever seen. I think he's the lowest rated receiver in all the NFL right now. Awful season out of him. Texans, Tyrod Taylor, 3 interceptions against that Dolphins defense. Not much to say about this game. Both teams are pretty bad. Texans are 1-8. Dolphins 2-7. Max, anything else?
I got nothing to add.
Moving on from there. Chargers, Eagles. Chargers take this one 27-24. Chargers are 5-3. Eagles 3-6. Justin Herbert 356 yards, 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler 59 yards rushing. Keenan Allen 104 yards, no touchdowns. And then going over to the Eagles side of things, Jalen Hurts 1 touchdown on 162 yards. Jordan Howard kind of looked like his old self in this game with 71 yards rushing and a touchdown. Devonta Smith 116 yards, a touchdown. Pretty close game. Chargers take this one. I feel like the Eagles are not a horrible team. They can compete against good teams, but they're not going to win out. They're not going to make the playoffs. Chargers would probably like to win this one by more, but they've been a little bit inconsistent. Given they have a second-year quarterback, I think that the way that the Chargers started out, they were really hot. We put a lot of expectations on them. They're still a really good team, and they're still developing. But I don't really see them as Super Bowl ready. They could be a dark horse Super Bowl team.
Kind of like them and the Bengals.
Exactly. They're not ready yet. They're still a really good team for where they are at this point in their rebuilding phase because they're, a couple, 2 or 3 drafts down the line, they're going to be an elite team. They could be that Chiefs type of team where they have everything on top of the sun in terms of going for them. You got an elite Justin Herbert. They could be that team. I don't think they're there yet, but 5-3 at this point in the season is promising. You have a second-year quarterback, Justin Herbert, who's fantastic. You can't really complain as a Chargers fan.
I will say about the Eagles, they're not particularly good. They're not a particularly good team, and they really don't have many people on offense that scare you. Maybe besides Devontae Smith, even not really yet. But this is a team that's found a way to be sneakily competitive. I always see they're putting up about 20 points a game, and Jalen Hurts can get touchdowns on the ground even through the air because you have to respect his dual threat ability. So again, scoring like 20 or so points a game is not going to win you games, but it's going to keep you competitive. And maybe, I don't know, is that a glimmer of hope for Eagles fans? I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is going to be their guy, but I don't think all hope is lost.
I'm just going to agree with you. I think Jalen Hurts is at least earned himself 1 to 2 more years to keep going. Moving on from there, Chiefs, Packers. A lot to say about this game. Packers side of things. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers out with COVID. Really weird situation with him where he claimed he had the vaccine in the summer and then apparently didn't get the vaccine. I don't really know why he said he got the vaccine when he didn't. It's a very weird situation there. And it sucks it gets political. Overall, I think as football fans, we could say that's really weird. Why did he lie? I guess for public reputation. But, if people find out that you don't have the vaccine and then you come and pretty much just talk down the vaccine, that really, I don't want to get into the political side of things, but just a really weird situation there. As out, Jordan Love steps up for his first start in the NFL, 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 reception, nothing fantastic. I didn't really see anything that I was wowed by, but that being said, moving on from there, rushing wise, I got to say this. AJ Dillon, 8 carries, 46 yards. Aaron Jones, 12 carries on 53 yards. It's clear to me, Packers made a mistake in re-signing Aaron Jones to a contract. Yes. AJ Dillon's a workhorse. He is just as productive as Aaron Jones, a lot younger, a lot cheaper. Made no sense to bring him back in. If I'm the Packers, I look to trade Aaron Jones. Obviously, deadline's gone, so you can't. But in this offseason, you got to trade him. No doubt about it. Moving on from there, you also got to pick up another receiver because Devontae Adams, 42 yards. They're locking him down. Could be OBJ. We'll see. But we'll see how the Packers 7-2. They're still on set to be Super Bowl contenders. So that being said, Chiefs, such a weird team. They beat the Packers here, which makes no sense to me. They pick up these really random games. Patrick Mahomes has looked abysmal, 166 yards and a touchdown. Not a great game out of him. Williams had 70 yards rushing. Travis Kelce had 68 yards receiving the touchdown. Tyreek Hill held to 37 yards. Again, the Chiefs are not good. And again, I'll say it over and over again. I love that clip that Brian made the other day. We got clowned for saying all these issues. These are all going to be issues, and it continues to show that this Chiefs team is not the same team. But I just find it really weird that they pick up these games like this against a Packers team, which with the state of the Chiefs right now, the Packers should actually blow out this Chiefs team, and it just didn't happen. It just they're such at a weird spot. I really don't even know how to describe it. Max?
Now, this is one of the games I did tune into for a little bit because I found myself having a break deep dinner and stuff. And it's just crazy for a team like the Chiefs. This is a team we talked about being so good at exploiting the opposing defenses, making do with what they have, playing their system. And now teams have figured it out, and they're not adjusting. I'm still seeing every time short passes behind the line of scrimmage where it's saying receiver, running back, create and play. Like, you have to utilize Mahomes' talent somehow. You're not going to get 50-yard plays every time. It's just what I see every week, but I'm just baffled as to how so little adjustment is made all the time.
One thing that became apparent.
Andy Reid.
One thing that came apparent to me this week was the fact that, again, defense are playing them deep, forcing them to make short passes, and forcing the Chiefs to run the ball. They don't have much of a running game. They never really did. It all came off their passing game, and now that they're playing them better, the rushing game is being exposed. The lack of offensive talent, the offensive line in terms of, I think chemistry is probably the number one problem. I think they have a couple good pieces there. Again, Orlando Brown, Tooney, those are solid guys you can build around. They don't have the chemistry, and it's going to take years to build that chemistry, or at least over a year, I'd probably say. And they don't have the talented enough running backs to really run without a great offensive line.
No run game like the Bills. No run game.
So they're being exposed because of that. Moving on from there, Cardinals 49ers. Cardinals take this one 31-17. Cardinals moved to 8-1 without Kyler Murray this week due to an injury. Colt McCoy, 249 yards, 1 touchdown. Can't ask much more out of him. Connor, you have 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. James Conner. Chase Edmonds goes down with an injury, so he's out the following week too. So James Conner is going to probably have a massive week upcoming week in fantasy. You have Kirk with 91 yards receiving. DeAndre Hopkins is obviously out. I find Christian Kirk to be such a weird receiver. Like, I think he's really talented. When he gets a significant amount of playing time and targets, he always does really good. I just feel like he's an underused receiver for this Cardinals team. And like, you put him on another team that really needs a receiver right now, he could be that number one receiver. He could be borderline elite receiver. He's just very productive whenever they use him a lot. 49ers side of things, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception, 326 yards for Garoppolo. Mitchell had 36 yards rushing, which kind of stunk because I traded for him, but 23 yards receiving. George Kittle comes back, 101 yards and a touchdown for him. You'd love to see it. Brandon Ayuk, 89 yards on a touchdown. You'd love to see it. Other than that, I would say here, Cardinals win it pretty handedly. Max?
Again, what happened to the 49ers? They're not fully healthy this year, but they're not like super injured like they were last year. Like last year, they at least had the injury excuse. Like, what's the excuse this year? It can't just be Garoppolo. It can't. Like, that team is too good. Do we start calling for Kyle Shanahan's head now? I don't want to say that, but like, I just can't figure out what's wrong with this team. I probably need to watch a little more, but like, this team is so talented.
So moving on from there, I gotta save your team for last, Max. Steelers, but Bears. Steelers take this one 29-27. Way too close of a game for what it was. Justin Fields, 291 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 reception. David Montgomery steps back into the mix of things. 63 yards rushing for him. Cole Kmet looks pretty good in this game with 87 yards receiving on the Steelers side of things. 205 yards for Big Ben with 2 touchdowns. Najee Harris doing what Najee Harris does, 62 yards and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, I think, has sneakily been one of the better receivers in the NFL this year. He had 56 yards in this game, which was not fantastic, but that was one of his lower games of the year. He's been very productive. You had I stick with his name, Freiermuth.
Freiermuth.
Yes, thank you. 2 touchdowns and 43 yards. He's been doing pretty good too. He's kind of emerging for the Steelers. So, a couple good rookies. Chase Claypool, 30 yards. Obviously without Juju. Steelers are 5-3. Bears are 3-6. I think Bears don't really have a shot at the playoffs. I think the Steelers do. Again, the Steelers are really consistent. Where they're going to land, I don't know. I really don't know. Max?
Yeah, I really think the Steelers have gotten away with playing a pretty easy schedule. I still don't think they're that good, but again, this game, it just feels like the Steelers, they're winning these games, but they're not doing it convincingly at all. Like, if they're playing any better teams, like what have they had the past week? The Seahawks and Bears, the Browns with all the turmoil they had in Baker's labrum, being torn. Like, I don't know that. I just wasn't inspired from what I saw much of this game. Like, we know how bad the Bears are and the Steelers. Like, you just got to do better. Like, they even had a lead toward the end, and then they allowed a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Just like, you got to clean up these things.
On 100%. So last game of the week, Titans Rams, best game of the week by far. Titans take this one 28-16 pretty handedly. Titans 7-2, Rams 7-2. I'll say this start off Titans. I said that, and if you check last week's podcast, it was only me. Everyone was saying, a lot of people were saying, Titans are dead in the water without Derrick Henry. Check my last week's podcast. I said they were.
Well, maybe not. I'll go into it.
I said last week, I said McNichols is going to step up. Adrian Peterson is going to step up. Devonta Foreman somehow stepped up in this game in terms of rushing. Wasn't a fantastic rushing game. Got the job done. I think it's going to be that way until Derrick Henry comes back. It's going to get the job done. And then also, I think offensively, again, got the job done. Still a lot of work to do. You got to remember, the Titans are replacing the 30-plus carries a game from Derrick Henry in a snap. They have to replace and change their whole offense around. But I think they have the talent to do so. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, you're going to see more and more usage out of them. 42 yards on 5 receptions for A.J. Brown. You had 4 receptions and 35 yards for Julio. Again, you're going to see them more and more get involved in the offense. I think this Titans team is going to stay afloat on offense because they have the talent to do so. Defensively, this is where the team shined this week, 100%. Jeffrey Simmons, 3 sacks on the day. Fantastic game out of him. He had an interception out of Long, which I think was it like a swat down? I forget.
Well, it was actually, so Jeffrey Simmons would have had 4 sacks, but so what happened was he was taking Stafford down and then he threw it for some reason and then Long picked off. And that's really where the game turned.
Yeah. And Kevin Byard also an interception. Again, defense really shined here, which is incredible because the Titans on paper don't have the greatest defense, but they're doing well, and you gotta give them credit. Rams moved to 7-2. I think both teams are Super Bowl contenders, and again, Titans are beating the Rams 28-16 right now without Derrick Henry. Imagine a well-rested Derrick Henry 6 to 7 weeks from now. Titans could be in that mix for Super Bowl contenders. Max?
I will say about the defense, it's funny how your greatest liabilities can go to some of your greatest strengths in the span of a year. The Titans' defensive line last year got 19 sacks, and we're up to 23 this year, I believe, in half a year, essentially. These guys stepped up, and watching them rush the quarterback is something to behold, especially, I mean, maybe it's not that impressive for teams that have had good pass rushing, but for a team like the Titans that has not been able to get pressure on the quarterback, watching Jeffrey Simmons improve, like he's been mainly a run stuffer, but then now he's getting involved as a pass rusher. Harold Landry turning in a career year just in time for a new contract. Bud Dupree, he's not meeting expectations, but I think we can expect him to get better because he's still probably recovering from that ACL because he jumped the gun returning a little bit. And then Nico Autry everyone on that line is helping each other just because of the mere presence of everyone there. And it's going to show you how winning in the trenches can make such a difference, and offensively, I mean, I will say I didn't think it was an impressive game, obviously. And like you said, you're not going to replace Derrick Henry's production in 1 week. And that was never what we thought was going to happen. You're not going to replace Derrick Henry's production. No one is going to. I just want to see more out of the passing game. And Ryan Tannehill, I will say, has not been as good as he was last year. And this game was an example. And A.J. Brown, and I love the guy, and he's doing really well to start his career, but he's got to cut the drops. He had 2 critical drops early in this game, and you don't become elite in this league unless you can catch the ball consistently. AJ's got to cut these drops if he wants to be an elite receiver in this league, because it was 3rd down too when he dropped those passes. Like, that's huge, extending these drives, and the Rams are almost able to come back into this game. Like, again, like, you can't expect them to be world beaters 1 week after losing Derrick Henry. But again, it's still got to be better regardless on offense, and hopefully game. I just hope we do a lot more play action still, because we're still running the ball like a bunch of times a game. So hopefully we can evolve and realize. I mean, even though Tannehill hasn't been that good this year, we still got to use Julio more. He hasn't been targeted much, even though he's been banged up. Mm-hmm. AJ's been doing well, and he's doing a lot better. But again, got to catch those passes. So hopefully the pieces will come together, but it's still far from perfect performance, but given everything that happened the past week, we'll certainly take a dominant win like that.
Mm-hmm. And that being said, I think this Titans offense is going to get better as long as their defense continues to stay hot. and their offense continues to get better, and then you insert Derrick Henry back in at some point, they're forced to be reckoned with.
I will say, hats off to the offensive line for the Titans, minus Bobby Hart, who sucks.
Yeah.
I really thought this team would have.
The Giants let him go for a reason.
Yeah. I really thought this team would have a terrible time containing Aaron Donald, and he only got one sack. I mean, that's all I could have really asked for. I thought Tannehill was going to get killed, and he was just fine.
And with that being said, week 10 lightning round of picks. Here we go. You guys ready? Here we go. Ravens, Dolphins. Ravens easy. Max?
Ravens could make this harder than it has to be, but I'm saying Ravens.
Titans, Saints. Titans all the way. Easy. You always go against your team. It's a trap game. No way.
I think this one is just because of how inconsistent the Saints have been. I'm telling you again, classic Titans meltdown after a huge win on the road, statement win, come back home. I've seen this play out before too many times. I just have, especially against, and also it's worth noting, Jerome Boger, who's been all but the kryptonite of the Titans, is reffing this game.
Also, I have no doubt about Titans in this game. I will nearly guarantee it.
Okay.
Bills, Jets, Bills easy.
Yeah, Bills easy.
Lions,
Steelers. I don't think I said, but I am picking the Saints to win that game by a point.
Gotcha. Lions, Steelers, taking the Steelers.
Yeah, even though no, I'm taking the Lions upset.
Wow. I think the
Steelers are going to play down to competition this week.
That's a huge upset. We'll have to see about that one.
Yep.
Jaguars, Colts, kind of mixed on this one. Jaguars beat the Bills, but I'm probably going to stay with the Colts here.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I don't see the Jaguars winning 2 in a row. No way.
Buccaneers, Washington, Buccaneers easy.
Yeah.
Browns, Patriots, probably going to be a pretty good game. I'm going to take the Browns. I'm going to ride them off this high. They're healthy again. They had a really good game last week against the Bengals. I'm going to go with the Browns by a really small margin.
I'm going to go with the Pats at home. I really am a believer in Mac Jones. I really am. And I think he's going to continue to progress. I think he can definitely do damage against the Browns defense.
Falcons, Cowboys, although the Falcons have been doing pretty well lately, I think the Cowboys are going to bounce back in this game and win this one pretty handily. Panthers, Cardinals easy.
Yep.
Vikings, Chargers, I'm taking the Chargers.
Yeah, it could be a little closer than we think, but I'm still taking the Chargers.
Packers, Seahawks. I do expect the Seahawks to put a fight in this one because they're going to get Russell Wilson back probably roughly full force. But I'm taking the Packers here.
Yeah, even with Russell Wilson, the Seahawks still were not looking very good. I'm going to take the Packers and what I presume is Aaron Rodgers' return. I don't see him being out because the COVID protocol will be over for him. But yeah, I'm taking the Packers here, especially at Lambeau.
Mm-hmm. Eagles, Broncos. I'm taking the Broncos. I think they played really well last game against the Rams. It could be a close one. I'm still sticking with the Broncos here.
I'm going to go with the Eagles. I think the Broncos are going to kind of cool off after a huge win. I think that game totally lied about how good they are, and I think they're going to come back and not play very well at home.
This one's going to be an example of if the NFL is rigged or not. I don't know, maybe. Chiefs, Raiders. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to go with the Chiefs here just because I think everything that's happening off the field with the Raiders is going to catch up to them. I think the Chiefs are desperate to get into this playoffs push, which they might be able to do at this point. They're 5-4. This is a huge game for them. They need to win this one. I'm gonna take the Chiefs with, I guess, technically an upset. I'm gonna take the Chiefs by a very small margin. It should be a really interesting game. Max?
I'm gonna go with the Raiders. I don't like what either team has done obviously this year. I like the Raiders more, but they've been inconsistent. But even then, the more and more I watch, I'm more and more underwhelmed by this Chiefs team. They seem to be unable to do anything on offense with all the talent they have. And the Raiders, they still have Derek Carr at least. Derek Carr is the reason they've been good. And if he can continue to put up points, I think that'll be enough.
Last game of the week, right?
I'd ever say that the Raiders are going to win this game against the Chiefs because the Raiders can put up points.
Exactly. Rams, 49ers, I'm going with the Rams, no doubt about it.
Yeah. They're not losing 2 weeks in a row, especially to the 49ers.
Yep. And that wraps up our week. Max, any final words?
I will say for those of you viewing on YouTube, sorry about my room. I honestly didn't take into account that the daylight savings had just happened. We usually do this at 5 when it's still light out. So we'll probably try to make that change for next week and the weeks after.
100%. So other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. Week 9 was a blast. On to week 10. Waiting for week 11 so I can get Kareem Hunt back on my fantasy team. Going to be fantastic when it eventually does. But other than that, see you guys next week.